Your Honor, these documents are forged. Every single signature is fake. The lawyer's words cut through the courtroom like a blade. I watched my daughter-in-law Cassandra's face drain of all color as Detective Rodriguez stepped forward with handcuffs. Ma'am, you're under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, and attempted theft of $3.2 million. How did we get here? How did the woman I once welcomed into my family like my own daughter end up trying to steal everything my husband and I had built over 45 years? The answer lies in greed, manipulation, and a betrayal so deep it nearly destroyed not just my fortune, but my faith in family itself. My name is Margaret, and I'm 67 years old. For most of my adult life, I lived what I thought was a blessed existence. My late husband Harold and I started with nothing when we got married in 1978. We rented a tiny apartment above Mrs. Chen's bakery, and Harold worked double shifts at the factory while I took in sewing to make ends meet. But we had dreams bigger than our circumstances. Harold had this gift for understanding what made jewelry beautiful. He could look at a stone and see its potential, could sketch designs that took your breath away. I had the business sense and the determination to make those dreams reality. In 1981, we scraped together enough money to open Precious Moments Jewelry in a small storefront downtown. I handled the books, the customers, the marketing, while Harold crafted pieces that soon had people driving from 3 counties over. We worked 16-hour days for years. I remember my hands being permanently stained with silver polish, Harold's fingers always bearing tiny cuts from wire and tools. But slowly, steadily, we built something magnificent. Custom engagement rings, anniversary pieces, estate jewelry restoration. By the time our son Robert graduated high school, we had expanded to 3 locations and were bringing in over $500,000 annually. Harold and I were partners in everything. We never made a major decision without the other. When Robert got married to Cassandra 8 years ago, we welcomed her with open arms. She was sweet, attentive, always asking about the business, always offering to help with family dinners. She seemed to genuinely care about Harold and me, calling us Mom and Dad from the very beginning. Then, Harold had his heart attack last October, 68 years old, gone in an instant while working late in his workshop. The funeral was a blur of flowers, casseroles, and condolences. But through it all, Cassandra was there, holding my hand, making sure I ate, handling phone calls. I thought I was blessed to have such a caring daughter-in-law during the worst time of my life. That's when I made my first mistake. In my grief, I signed papers giving Cassandra power of attorney just temporarily while I got back on my feet. She assured me it was just to help with bills and business matters. Robert nodded along, saying his wife just wanted to take care of me. I was so numb with loss, so grateful for the help. already looked at some lovely places. And honestly, with Robert's promotion and the kids getting bigger, we really need more space. There's just no space for you to stay with us if you don't want to move to a facility. No space for me. In the family, I had poured my life into building. That's when I realized something had shifted in Cassandra's demeanor. The warmth was gone, replaced by something calculating. She started showing up unannounced, always with some new concern about my ability to live independently. She'd point out dust on shelves, expired food in my refrigerator, bills I hadn't opened yet. See, you're just not managing well on your own, she'd say, shaking her head with fake sympathy. But I was managing fine. I was grieving, yes, but I was perfectly capable of running my own life. I had been running a multi-million-dollar business for decades. Yet somehow, every conversation with Cassandra left me feeling confused and inadequate. She had this way of twisting my words, of making me doubt my own memory and judgment. The isolation came next. Phone calls from friends would mysteriously not reach me. Oh, I took a message, but I must have forgotten to tell you, Cassandra would say, with an innocent shrug. Invitations to church events, garden club meetings, even my weekly bridge game stopped coming. When I asked about it, Cassandra explained that she had called to let people know I wasn't feeling up to socializing. I was just protecting you from having to make excuses, she said. Then came the business interference. Cassandra started showing up at precious moments, telling my employees that I was taking time off and that she would be handling things temporarily. When I arrived to find her going through Harold's private files, she looked up with that same sweet smile. Just organizing things for you, Mom. I know how overwhelming this all must be. What I discovered next left me speechless. Hidden in Harold's desk, I found a folder labeled Insurance, Margaret Eyes Only. Inside was a life insurance policy I didn't know existed, worth $1.8 million, with me as the sole beneficiary. There was also documentation showing that Harold had been quietly investing our profits for years, building a portfolio now worth nearly $2 million more. My husband had left me wealthy enough to never worry about money again. But when I called our financial advisor to discuss the investments, he seemed confused. I thought Mrs. Cassandra was handling all that now, he said. She came in last week with power of attorney documents, wanting to move everything into joint accounts. My blood ran cold. I had never authorized any such thing. That's when I made my second mistake. Instead of confronting Cassandra directly, I decided to investigate quietly. I hired a private investigator named Frank Morrison, a retired police detective who specialized in elder fraud cases. What Frank discovered over the next 3 weeks made my stomach turn. Cassandra had been forging my signature on multiple documents. She had attempted to change the beneficiaries on Harold's life insurance policy, listing herself and Robert as primary recipients. She had been systematically stealing pieces from my personal jewelry collection, selling them online and keeping the profits. Most shocking of all, she had been meeting with a lawyer about having me declared mentally incompetent, with herself as my legal guardian. Frank showed me photos of Cassandra entering a medical office with forged documents claiming I was showing signs of dementia. She had scheduled appointments with doctors I had never met, using my insurance information to create a paper trail of mental decline that didn't exist. The depth of her deception was breathtaking, but she made one crucial mistake. In her greed, Cassandra got sloppy. Frank had been recording her conversations, and in one particularly damaging call to her lawyer, she spelled out her entire plan. The old woman is worth over $4 million, But she's standing in the way of everything Robert and I deserve, she said, her voice dripping with contempt. Once I get her declared incompetent, I can sell the business, liquidate the investments, and she'll never know what hit her. Armed with this evidence, I did something Cassandra never expected. I got angry. Really, truly angry for the first time since Harold died. This woman had preyed on my grief, manipulated my son, and tried to steal the life's work Harold and I had built together. She had isolated me from friends, made me doubt my own sanity, and worst of all, she had made me feel like a burden to the family I loved. I decided to let her dig her own grave deeper. Working with Frank and my lawyer Leonard, we set a trap. I pretended to go along with Cassandra's plans, acting increasingly confused and dependent. I signed papers she put in front of me, but Leonard made sure they were meaningless duplicates. I played the role of the declining widow while secretly documenting every lie, every theft, every manipulation. The confrontation came at my grandson Jake's high school graduation party. Cassandra had insisted on hosting it at our house, the one she was already mentally redecorating. The whole extended family was there, including Harold's brothers and their wives, old friends from the business, even some of our longtime customers who had become like family over the years. Cassandra was in her element, playing the devoted daughter in law taking care of poor, declining Margaret. She guided me to a chair like I was fragile, spoke about me in the third person, even when I was sitting right there. We're just so worried about Mom's memory, she told Harold's sister Linda, loud enough for everyone to hear. Yesterday, she forgot she had already eaten lunch and made herself another meal. It's so sad. That's when I stood up. The room gradually fell quiet as I walked to the center of the living room, Frank Morrison beside me with a folder of evidence. I'd like to share something with everyone, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the room. Some of you may have heard that I've been struggling with memory problems. Well, I want to set the record straight. Cassandra's face went white, but she tried to maintain her composure. Mom, maybe you should sit down, she said, reaching for my arm. I pulled away. My memory is perfectly fine, Cassandra. Fine enough to remember every lie you've told, every document you forged, and every dollar you've stolen from me. The room went dead silent. I opened Frank's folder and began reading from the private investigator's report. The forged signatures, the stolen jewelry, the insurance fraud attempts, the fake medical records. As I spoke, Cassandra's mask finally slipped completely. The sweet, caring daughter-in-law persona evaporated, replaced by something ugly and desperate. You can't prove any of that, she hissed, but her voice was shaking. Everyone here knows you're not competent to make these accusations. Robert, tell them how confused she gets. But Robert was staring at his wife like he was seeing her for the first time. Is this true? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Did you really do all this? That's when Cassandra completely lost control. She started screaming about how I had never appreciated her, how I had always treated her like an outsider, how she and Robert deserved everything because they were the ones who would carry on the family name. She accused me of being selfish, of hoarding money that should go to my grandchildren, of being a bitter old woman who couldn't accept that my time was over. But her worst mistake was admitting to the forgeries while everyone was listening. So what if I signed a few papers? She shrieked. You weren't competent to handle your own affairs anyway. Someone had to protect the family assets from your bad decisions. The room erupted. Harold's brothers were furious. My friends were horrified. Even some of Robert's friends were shaking their heads in disgust. Leonard, my lawyer, had been recording everything with my permission. As Cassandra's rant continued, he quietly called Detective Rodriguez, who arrived within 20 minutes. The detective had already been investigating based on Frank's evidence, and Cassandra's public confession was the final piece he needed. The arrest happened right there in my living room in front of the entire graduation party. Cassandra fought and screamed as they put the handcuffs on, calling me every vile name she could think of. She accused Robert of being weak, the guests of being fools, and me of ruining her life. "You'll never see your grandchildren again," she screamed as they led her away. "I'll make sure they hate you forever." But children aren't stupid. My grandchildren, Amy, 16, and Jake, 18, had been watching their mother's behavior too. They had seen how she talked about me when she thought they weren't listening, how she rolled her eyes when I called, how she intercepted my attempts to spend time with them. As the police car pulled away, Amy came over and hugged me tight. "I'm sorry, Grandma," she whispered. "We knew something wasn't right." The legal proceedings took 8 months, but justice came swiftly. Cassandra was convicted on multiple counts of elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and attempted theft. She received 5 years in prison and was ordered to pay full restitution for everything she had stolen or attempted to steal. The judge was particularly harsh in his sentencing, noting that elder abuse cases involving family members represented a particularly despicable breach of trust. Robert divorced her while she was awaiting trial. He came to me with tears in his eyes, apologizing over and over for not seeing what was happening, for allowing his wife to manipulate and isolate me. "I thought I was being a good husband by supporting her," he said. "I never realized she was destroying you in the process. It took time, but we rebuilt our relationship. He's a good man who fell under the influence of a master manipulator. The business thrived once I took back full control. Without Cassandra's interference, I was able to implement expansion plans Harold and I had discussed before his death. I opened a fourth location and hired Amy part-time to learn the trade, just like her grandfather had taught her father years ago. The sense of purpose, of being needed and respected again, was like coming back to life after months of feeling buried. Today, 2 years later, I'm stronger than I've ever been. I kept the house Harold and I built, and it's filled with family again. Amy and Jake spend weekends with me, learning about the jewelry business and hearing stories about their grandfather. Robert has remarried a wonderful woman named Patricia, who treats me with genuine respect and warmth. She never tries to manage my life or suggest I'm too old to make my own decisions. The experience taught me that age doesn't make you vulnerable. Isolation. Systematically undermined me for months. I could have given up. I could have accepted her narrative that I was too old, too confused, too much of a burden to deserve respect. Instead, I chose to investigate, to document, to build a case, and to stand up in front of my entire family to reclaim my dignity. If this story resonated with you, I hope you'll share it with someone who might need to hear it. Too many older adults suffer in silence when family members take advantage of them. We need to talk about these issues openly and support each other in recognizing the warning signs. Please subscribe to hear more stories like this one. Leave a like if this message touched you, and comment below with your own experiences or thoughts. I read every single comment, and I'm grateful for this community we're building together. Remember, your worth doesn't decrease with age, and you're never too old to stand up for yourself. Sometimes the people who claim to care for you are the ones you most need to protect yourself from. Trust your instincts, maintain your independence, and never let anyone convince you that you're too old to know your own mind. Thank you for listening to my story.